Good morning everybody from a very misty Djuma private game reserve this morning. My name's Stefan. I'm going to be hosting your safari for the morning. It's myself and Scott in the vehicle today and Nikki in final control. At 4:20 this morning the camp was abuzz with hyena calls, spotted hyena calls, and so we decided to come this morning and have a look at the hyena den to see what has happened after the wild dog crashed into here yesterday morning. I know there was a few of you that were concerned over the well-being of the hyena, and I must say I'm glad to say that all seems in order. The cubs are in good condition. They're running around playing quite boisterously, and the females look good as well. We can only see one, the mother of the two young cubs at the moment. She is busy feeding her babies at the moment, and they seem to be hungrily guzzling down their breakfast. Now, for those viewers new to Wild Earth, we're in Djuma Private Game Reserve at the moment, which is situated inside the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, adjacent to the massive Kruger National Park in South Africa. Being part of a larger reserve has its pros and its cons, but one of the cons is that, or one of the pros, I should say at least, is that we've got a beautiful property to drive around on and access. As many of you would have noticed, before we can drive off-road, we can access hyena dens like this and sit here undisturbed, watching Mother Nature unfold her story in the mornings. Now, although hyena can move around in the day, most of them move around at night time. So you probably find that this mother was foraging last night. They can walk incredibly far. I've heard reports of hyena walking anywhere from a couple of kilometers to up to 60 kilometers in the case of some brown hyenas in the desert areas of Africa. They will hunt for themselves, contrary to popular belief, but it's much easier to steal kills from other predators. And hyena and leopard in particular have an uneasy relationship with one another, with hyena stealing leopard kills as often as they can. So this mother is a really big mother. Hyena females are generally larger than what males are, and this is because they are very, very good mothers. And knowing that she's a good mother means that she needs to keep herself well nourished, and they're quite aggressive around carcasses and around food, with the females of spotted hyenas usually dominating kills, and it makes them a bit bigger, and usually for their entire lives will keep them bigger than the males. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the car around that side of the den. When we arrived they were playing on this side of the den, but I see they've now settled down a little bit, and let's go and change the angle. Hyena dens can be quite tolerant of us. Basically, if you just watch how the animals behave around you while you're busy maneuvering, you'll be able to judge whether or not you're having an effect on these animals. You can see the one cub directly in front of us on the left. There we go. You can see Mom didn't even lift her head at us. So this mom would have moved her cubs into this den. It's probably a communal den shared by all the hyena of her particular clan. There are usually successive generations of cubs or cubs in a den like this, and in this particular case there's one cub from one mother and two cubs from another mother. They all share parenting, and they do this because these cubs will be at this den site for 12 to 15 months before they move off. It's a long time, and a little bit too much just for one mother to handle. It's not uncommon for mothers to feed and even suckle cubs. Lions do exactly the same. Social animals tend to help one another. As the cubs get older and they need more filling meals, you'll find other members of the clan actually bringing meals to them. I've seen whole animals basically be brought to den sites like this, hindquarters of wildebeest and pieces of impala, and quite often by the time these cubs leave this den site, the whole area around it will be littered with bones and toys basically for the youngsters. Go right ahead. Good morning, Kathy from Tennessee. Quite a nice question there. It was, why do we never see adult male hyena around this den? Adult male hyena have no part in bringing up the cubs of the clan. So there's no reason for them to come around the den. They'll be outcompeted for food. They're not welcome around the cubs. It doesn't mean that they won't visit it from time to time. I have seen adult male hyena hanging around the outskirts of a den site, but generally because they have no real hand in bringing up the cubs, and the females are so much larger and generally so much more aggressive than what they are, they tend to keep clear and keep in the periphery. They are an active part of the clan though, and they will take part in defending the clan and marking the clan's boundaries. So here we've got this little guy walking up to us. Hyena are incredibly inquisitive, and you can see already this little guy or girl, they're quite difficult to sex actually, has that big thick neck, well developed head, and the four quarters, the shoulders of an endurance athlete, and basically just as a powerhouse to dismember the skeletons and the carcasses of large animals that have died in the bush. Primarily that's the rid of the sick, lame, lazy and the dead. An accumulation of dead animals in the bush will actually poison an environment, and the hyena and vulture play an incredibly important role in the ecology of the bush out here, that they actually maintain disease, or maintain effective control of a disease, I should say. By dismembering carcasses and carrying them off long distances, they're spreading the effect. They break open carcasses with those incredibly strong jaws and neck muscles, which allows other smaller scavengers to come in and finish off what they don't. But all that takes exercise, and you'll notice that this little cub, their inquisitive nature is quite often leads them to chewing and wrestling things. I have no doubt that this little guy is going to be picking up a stick or a branch soon. As is so often the case with my predictions, they'll go and do something completely different. So you'll notice the tail wagging on the hyena cub. Hyenas have a very elaborate greeting ritual, and this little cub won't approach that female with her baby suckling on her without greeting her first. All hyenas greet each other very elaborately when they meet one another, and it's a display and a swapping of smells. Something's piqued the interest of the female. She's got her head up. We can't see anything, I can't hear anything, but you see, full of confidence. Oh, there we go, there's another hyena that's just arrived on the scene. This one's smaller than the female that's busy suckling, and may very well be one of the hyena that was involved in the fight with the wild dogs yesterday. For those just joining us for the first time, this den site was intruded upon by a pack of wild dog yesterday, and there was a bit of a scrap as the females tried to get the wild dogs away from the cubs, and the cubs tried to get into the den, I'm sure. Have a look at that. So right up to the vehicle, no fear whatsoever, just as it should be. So you'll notice a very exaggerated sloping back. That sloping back stance that hyena have got is characteristic to them, but some antelope have it as well. Hartebeest, that's probably the mother of the... You can have a look at the greeting that's going to be going on here. A lot of smelling around. You'll notice that there's a bit of excitement all of a sudden at the appearance of this other hyena. Oh, these little guys are so cute. Hyena are my favorite animal, that and honey badger, and it's because they're so animated. Good morning. So I see this hyena doesn't seem to have any wounds on her. Okay, have a careful look what's happening there. It's a very, very interesting behavior that you've just seen that hyena do there. That's called pasting. I have an anal gland that secretes a paste. It's an olfactory signal to other hyena that says, this is who I am. Watch, have a look at this little one. They react, and it looks like she's also going to go over and try and paste. There we go. Hyena never fail to inspect a pasting. You'll notice the gland comes out, the grass stalk goes over the gland, and this quite sticky, very smelly paste. There, they're just rubbing their clan scent all over themselves. And it's one of the things that bond hyena so closely together. Have a look at that. That's not behavior that you see often at all. We watched an adult hyena paste, and now we've just watched the cubs paste.
Yeah, I've certainly never seen that in all my time spent at the den site, Steph. So, like you said, that's awesome.
Yeah. Brown hyena, these are spotted hyena. Brown hyena, which occur over a wider part of Africa, they have the most elaborate olfactory scent marking system that exists as far as I'm aware, and they actually have two ways of pasting. They paste a whitish extradite, and they also paste a black extradite, one of which is just to affirm that they've been down that particular riverbed or that particular area and there's nothing there. The other one is to say, I'm from this clan, I'm male and female, I'm this old, and who knows what other information comes out of that. Spotted hyena, you hardly ever see their pastings. It's usually just a slimy excretion on the grass stalks. You definitely smell it if you walk through it and your legs have to brush up against it. So what I'm gonna reposition again. We have the female that just arrived. She's lying with her two cubs on the other side, and I think I'm gonna go there. Give us a view of what's going on. We just have another vehicle joining us in the sighting. Go with your message. Yeah, no problem. Go with your message. We have a question from Jane asking if a lower ranked female can take over the clan. The answer to that question is an absolute yes, but it would be at the expense of the matriarch. Not necessarily killing the matriarch, but definitely ousting her or demoting her considerably. The matriarchal position is a hereditary position, so it will be passed from the matriarch to a daughter, and these times are quite often hotly contested, because if the matriarch gets injured or killed by a lion or in a fight with something, then there is a bit of a power struggle. So the answer is an absolute yes. Mobile with a 2 PC on film. 2 mobiles in this particular lock at the moment. PC Kaya off of film with it. So den sites can get quite boisterous with the cubs, as you can imagine. Having yourself once you've been feeding for a whole night, or walking a whole bunch of kilometers, and then having to come home to feed the kids and then try and catch a nap before foraging again, it can get quite frustrating for the females. Quite often the females will come, check on the cubs, they will feed them, have a bit of playtime, reassure the cubs, and then they'll actually move off. And the cubs will move into the den. Now, hyena don't dig their own holes in termitaria, or in the Sabi Sands at least, their den sites are almost in termite mounds, almost always in termite mounds. They excavate holes that are already there. Now, hyena siblings, it's for all their boisterous play and their activity and their curiosity, it's quite savage being a hyena. When twin females are born to the matriarch, quite often the bigger of the two cubs will actually kill the younger one. This practice is known as siblicide or canism, and it happens in nature. It happens in eagles as well, some other birds, but it happens to ensure that there's no dominance struggle as the cubs get older, and that there's a very clear lineage from matriarch to successor. And this is all for clan strength. You want to have a united, strong clan, and although it might seem a bit savage to us, hyena societies are some of the strongest bonded societies in the animal kingdom, and together they're very successful. You find hyenas in almost all of the national parks. You find hyenas outside of the national parks, which is rare for large carnivores. For instance, lion in Africa we have another hyena arriving. Lion in Africa are almost exclusively only found in national parks. You'll notice what happened there. Okay, have a look, and you'll see the one hyena went straight into a submissive posture. So they're greeting one another there. You'll notice the hyena on the ground, she's very submissive. Now the hyena that was nursing the cub was obviously a lower ranking female. And this is either the matriarch or she's the mother of the cubs. It's quite difficult to tell with hyena. They're actually quite difficult to tell apart from one another unless there's some excitement. Now there's no way that a hyena from another clan would have been nursing cubs at this clan. So the other hyena is definitely from this clan. She's just obviously a lower ranking female than the one that came in here now. Now I do see some bite marks on that hyena. But she looks to be keeping them quite clean. She doesn't look to be injured. She looks a bit stiff, I will be honest. But after a pack of wild dogs barreling in here and her having a fight, obviously her having a fight to give her cubs the best chance of survival and to protect her clan to stay as matriarch, she took a bit of a beating from the dogs, but it doesn't look like she's bad at all. She's just a bit stiff. Go right ahead. Copy that. Notice the cubs are coming back out of the den now. So it's good practice for cubs as soon as they hear a disturbance, or as soon as they hear another hyena is coming or another predator, to run into the den. The cubs themselves will actually have excavated inside the den their own escape holes, and they quite often make these elaborate You're welcome. Linda in Washington. Welcome, Linda. Has asked what the gestation period of a hyena are, and it's relatively short, even though the cub almost all the large predators have gestation periods of roughly 3 months, and that's because when you're running around with a belly full of babies, you run the risk of exhausting yourself, in which case you'll do harm to your babies. You also run the risk of injury when you're tackling large prey, or getting into fights over territory, or getting into fights with other large carnivores. And so most predators have den sites. They have their litters, and their babies are kept safe in a den and moved from time to time until, in this particular case, the babies can come to a communal den where there's lots of cubs all looking after one another, and almost always an adult in attendance somewhere in the area. I hope that answers your question. You'll notice there's a meeting going on in the Sabi Sand. You never really find large groups of hyenas together, even though the clan size may vary to a couple of dozen individuals. You hardly ever find all of them together all the time. I have seen 4, 5, and 6 hyena at a time when they are on the move, hunting. Say hello to the cubs and have a bit of family time. Go right ahead. Good morning, Jilly from Milwaukee. And your question about do hyena males band together for hunting? Yes, they do, although it's not a boys' club, as I suppose the question was implying. They don't band together because the females are bigger and nastier and looking after the babies, and dominating. It leaves them with kills and nothing better to do. Hyenas will band together when they need to hunt large prey. So in areas where there's an abundance of large prey, they will band together. Now, unlike lion and leopard who's develop muscles on their head and in their neck that gives them quite a barreled look in their faces and in their necks, and it's literally just muscle attachment. You'll have a look, the hyena we're looking at right now, you'll notice if she bends down again, a bulge of muscle just below and behind her ear. They're really well developed. And that sloped appearance or that sloped spine gives them amazing leverage. And I've seen them dismember elephant carcasses, giraffe, buffalo carcasses. It'd take 10 people to do. So that hyena is busy scratching her ear there. Makes you think, or might make you think, that hyenas are very similar to dogs. But in actual fact, from a taxonomic you'll notice this den site's looking a little bit bare already, and that's because the cubs are getting a bit older now, and their curiosity and their built-in need to exercise and build on the muscles that they have means that they will almost anything that is within range of their reach and can be moved will be chewed up and carried around. And that does tend to leave den sites in a bit of a messy affair. Hyenas will move den sites. They won't just have one den site. They'll move den sites often. And there's a bit of speculation as to why they move den sites. You know, a build-up of detritus, bones and feces around the den site means that this becomes a very clear indication to other predators that there's hyenas here, and it might pose a danger to the cubs. There's also speculation that fleas and other parasites build up inside the den and they become intolerable, and so the mothers will move the cubs from den site to den site. I think there's a combination of factors. I think there's a good chance that it's a combination of both factors. You're welcome. Good morning, Caroline from Missouri. Caroline's posed an interesting question. It doesn't look like there's any meat around the den, and it doesn't look like any of the females brought any meat with them. The stature of the female, or her rank. But these little cubs will start eating meat anywhere from 15 to 18 weeks. They will start foraging on their own from about 15 months and will become active clan members anywhere from 15 months to 24 months. In other words, they will start adding value to the clan. See that little guy over there just busy pruning that bush. Coming back to the hunting question, what that little cub there is doing doesn't look like anything but play, but in actual fact everything is just practice for one day when they're going to be exhibiting very similar behavior, pulling down large prey. I've seen clans of hyena kill buffalo on their own, which was terrifying to witness, to be honest, because you don't expect hyena to be able to kill something that big. I've seen single hyena pull down kudu, which easily outweighs them 3-1, in some cases even 4-1. So what that little guy's doing is very important to his or her future survival. It's learning how to use that leverage in their body, learning how to tuck their back legs between their front legs so that they can leverage, getting those massive neck muscles into play and that long neck into play, exercising the jaw muscles so that they can dismember their prey and dismember carcasses. And all returns to calm at the hyena den. I think what we're going to do is let's try and reposition to the other side of the den. If the hyena look like they are settling down for their morning, then we'll make our way out of the den site. Give them some time just to relax. You're welcome. Would you go again? Good morning, Kevin in Boston. Kevin has asked, would these hyenas be in danger if the wild dogs arrived with three adult hyena around the den? It's always difficult to answer a question like that because you don't know how many hyena would stay in. And how many wild dogs may arrive. I have a theory that I've been working on over the years that works around weight. Now, hyena, usually the interactions you see between large predators are between hyena and lion or hyena and leopard. But in this case, it would work well enough for hyena and wild dog. I see it as being a weight issue. So the 3 adult hyena that we have here, if we say they average around 40 kilograms each, that'll give us a total weight of hyena here of about 100 or roughly 120 kilograms. The average weight of a wild dog is about 15 kilograms. So you'd need a substantial amount of wild dog to run in here to give these hyenas any sort of run for their money. So yesterday, I'm not too sure how many wild dog were in the pack that ran through here, but what you could do is just extrapolate it out to 120 kilograms of hyena versus 120 kilograms of wild dog. In that case, I'd say that the wild dog would definitely pose a threat to the hyena, just because there'd be more of them and they can attack from more sides. But if it was just 3 or 4 wild dog, I see that the wild dog will be run off relatively easily. Wild dog are one of the rarest of the predators that we have in this part of the world. But it would definitely come down to a situational thing. At the time, how many hyena are versus how many wild dog. And according to my theory at least, the pack weights of both. So these hyena have settled down now. There hasn't been much activity here for the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's such a beautiful morning. The mist is starting to burn off of the valleys at the moment. The sun has started to rise. And I think what we're going to do at the moment is move off and go and have a look for something else exciting to watch. It's been fun with these hyena. I'm very, very glad that the female that was attacked yesterday seems to be in perfect health. I'm very happy to see that the cubs, there's nothing wrong with the cubs and they're just as boisterous as they were before. And I'm also happy to see that there's more than one hyena here at the moment, which shows that there's a good family bond still happening and they all look healthy. So we wish you a good morning. Enjoy resting up. Interestingly, I was awake this morning at about 2:30 and I bumped into a hyena inside of our camp. And obviously he was taking a chance by walking quite boldly into a camp that only has one entrance and one exit, and trying to scavenge greatly. Unlike lion and unlike leopard, who it's quite rare for them to walk into a camp, hyena will without fear walk directly into the middle of a staff village. And for that reason, I see them as being one of the most dangerous animals to have around a camp. It's not uncommon to hear of stories of hyena biting people quite badly who fall asleep with their doors open, or fall asleep in chairs around fires. So they're quite timid. For all their danger, the hyenas are easily scared off, and all she did was, or he did, was skedaddle out of the campsite last night. And then Diane from Austin said that around about 4:20 this morning there was calling around Djuma Dam. Hyena was vocalizing around the dam, probably the same individual. And she would have been vocalizing, or he would have been vocalizing. He would have been vocalizing to talk basically about, or to talk to the rest of their clan. I'm here, this is where I am, I'm healthy, I'm happy, or I'm upset. Whatever message she was trying to convey. And it would have been answered. Usually hyenas answer one another, even if we can't hear it. And it was one of the reasons we decided to come to the den site this morning. It seemed like everyone was getting back together. You're welcome. Will actively search out and kill lion cubs whenever they can. I got a feeling it's just because lion are more difficult to kill when they're adults, and so they're just eliminating competition later on. And this inbred fear, or this programmed fear, manifests itself in adult lion who are the top dogs in the bush. But I have seen male lions actively hunt and kill a hyena, not in the same way that they'd hunt a buffalo by stalking, and but definitely they don't back down from an encounter with a hyena, and will go out of their way to try and catch and kill one. Equally, male lion who are old or injured are often harassed and abused quite badly by hyena. Very often old male lion who have been injured during pride takeovers are then killed subsequently by hyena. So there's definitely massive animosity between the two. There's definitely, they go out of their way to kill one another whenever they can, whenever the odds are stacked in their favor. Do they live mutually exclusive from one another? No. The male lions who call this place home, as much as what the hyenas who call this place home, all live in the same neighborhood. The lions that have grown up in this area are intimately familiar with the hyena, and the hyena that grew up in this area are intimately familiar with the lion. And this stretches across generations. And because the area we're in at the moment was never anything else except a wilderness area, it was never farms that have been reclaimed, it always, forever has been a wilderness area. You find that the lineage here might go back thousands, even tens of thousands of years. Lions hunting hyena, hyena hunting lion. Never ending power struggle. All over resources. Of food for a giraffe and a tree, but not that many. There are definitely more trees than giraffe. And equally so, there are definitely more giraffe than there are lion and hyena. And that's simply because there isn't enough energy at that level to sustain massive amounts of lion or hyena. There would be no balance if there was. Arguably my favorite animals. They're always busy with something, they're never just sleeping. Notice the massive jawbone that you can see there. Once again, just another testimony to the strength and the power that these animals exhibit. You can see her canines there, quite blunt, not as sharp and as recurved as lions or leopards would be. See hyena walking around, so it was very obvious here at kills and in the most bizarre places at any time of the day. They definitely get around. I think that's going to be our cue. We're going to move on. Been exceedingly generous in showing us a portion of their lives this morning. For those of you just joining us, you're welcome to send through questions on Twitter at #SafariLive, or you can email questions at WildEarthTV, and we'll try our best to answer as many questions as we can while we're trying to find you something else to look for. It never fails to amaze me, these spider webs. They're quite difficult to see, but because of the mist we've got this morning, we've been gifted with this look of a tropical tent web spider. Now, she's lying in what they call negative geotaxis, which is a massively complicated word for me. But basically what it means is she's in the middle of her web, she's upside down, in the middle of that shiny, silvery, massive web close to the bottom. The rest of the web, everything above it, are called entanglement lines. They're not sticky silk. Basically what it is, it's there to entangle and entrap an animal, which forces the animal to fall between those lines into the net or the tent at the bottom. She then, from the bottom of the web, and quite safe away from kicking spines and biting mandibles, will strike and envenomate her prey. She then draws the prey through the bottom of the web, and she'll eat it at the bottom, discarding whatever she doesn't want to eat on the edges of the web, quite often leaving these grim trophies. She doesn't seem to have too much though. Now spiders, silk is one of the most amazing things in the animal kingdom. From marine creatures to insects, all through the animal world you find silk. Spiders have got have developed a particularly pretty way of utilizing silk. They spin it out of spinnerets. It's a liquid, comes out of a gland, or several glands in actual fact. 7 different types of silk get produced by these glands, and they can be mixed and matched in an incalculable amount of ways. Right in the beginning I said that the strands at the top of this web are not sticky. They're quite solid, they don't break very easily, whereas the strands in that silvery mass at the bottom are very sticky. She can even get stuck in her own web. Some spiders are covered in very fine hairs which stop them from getting stuck in their own web. Others exude a type of oil which repels the web. I'm not too sure what this particular spider does not to get caught in her web, but I'm sure that hanging upside down just by her feet stops most of that. So tropical tent web spider. The name given to her is from the circus tent-like structure that you're seeing there in that silvery mass. Awesome. I have a question for our viewers. What insects do you think this spider catches? So if you had to look at that web, if you had to think to yourself what you've seen and what I've told you, predominantly what is she trying to catch in her web? Stations, I'm making my way out of the PC kayak, if you've seen on dip. There's an open lock. What a beautiful morning. Generally these mornings that we have in May are typically misty. One of my favorite months of the entire year is May. May and January are my favorite times of the year. May because the grass is already starting to lie flat and animals are still healthy after a nice long summer and it's not too cold. And January because of just the sheer abundance and diversity of life that we have in the bush around us, even though it is quite hot and muggy sometimes, but my favorite time now. The mist is starting to burn off. I have no doubt that it's going to be a scorcher a bit later on today. Myself and Scott have noticed that the bush is seemingly drying up a bit earlier than usual, although these things are often quite subjective. We've only been working in the bush for a short amount of time, relatively speaking. 16 years is in the bush has actually only seen me go through a wet cycle. About 2 or 3 years before I started in the bush, there was a drought here, and you'd battle to believe that the pictures I have seen of 16 or 18 years ago showed absolutely no grass between the trees at this time of the year. Just sand. What we're slowly going to be doing is some of the other vehicles that are on safari. As you know, we're part of a larger guiding community around us, and we're all helping one another read what we like to call out here the bush newspaper. It's quite complex and very elaborate. No one person can read everything at once. But some of our teammates have been with a leopard. For those of you who know the reserve up near Mamba Road, it's incredibly thick there, and they've lost and refound this animal over and over again. But we're going to be making our way into the area soon to go and give them a hand and hopefully relocate and identify what cat it is and what's he been up to, what he's up to, not has been up to. We've got a southern black tit, we've got an orange-breasted bushrock, we've got a tawny-flanked perunia. Quite difficult to see, unfortunately, I'm sorry. It's even difficult for myself to see. But a bird party nevertheless. Now this is very interesting. Let's see if we can get it into the the view. I'm going to point out to you what we're looking at over here. But this tree right here is one of the hardest trees that we find out here, the densest trees. We're looking at a roughly 1,500 kilograms of density per cubic meter, whatever that means. I'm not clever enough to understand that particular definition of hardness, and I'm going to take a quick walk up to the tree. Because the name that this tree is given is because of its wood. Where I was scraping, I don't know if it'll come out that clear, but you'll see that it's white and black. This is called the zebra wood. Are we battling slightly?
Battling there, possibly it's the camera operator.
But it's the zebra wood nevertheless, and it gets its name from the black and white stripes that the wood is marbled with. A fantastic wood to work furniture from and to make fires from, in actual fact, because it's so hard. Behind it, and slightly out of focus, is the softest wood we find out here, and that is a cork wood. And apart from the leaves being browsed by some animals, nothing much happens at all with this tree. Leaves and the berries are used, but the wood itself is so light and so porous as to be almost useless. So one of the hardest, the hardest and the softest trees growing right next to one another. It never fails to amaze me that out of the same patch of sand, basically, you get trees that exhibit such different qualities to one another. They use the same sunlight, they have the same water, they have the same minerals, and yet two completely different trees. I say, to this day it still astounds me. You're welcome to go ahead. You had a shot to trying to answer my question posed to you about what the spider eats. We've had answers ranging from moths, bugs, butterflies, grasshoppers, bees, and in a way you're almost all right, because spiders will catch almost anything. But that particular spider is geared to catch insects that hop and fly and land on branches. Those incredibly strong entanglement snares are there to catch incredibly strong prey and to immobilize it while she bites from the bottom. Now, the only insects that exhibit that particular type of behavior out here are locusts and grasshoppers. So she doesn't catch the biggest locusts, but she definitely, for the type of web that she gets, catches locusts. That's what she catches. So well done to all of you that had grasshopper or locust. That's the right answer. You're welcome. So well done to Maggie and Eric. You had it right. Congratulations. It was actually quite a difficult question. Well done. Go right here. That's affirmative. Just would you mind just going with the lock again? One weaver's nest at the moment, approaching twin dams. I'm going to be approaching from the south. Copy the paper. 5 to 10. Okay folks, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and pick up the pace a little bit. Our teammates that have been finding and losing and finding and losing that leopard have found him walking on a road not too far away from us at the moment. And what we're going to try and do is make our way into the area. Hopefully he doesn't go into the thick bush that's typical of that particular area of this reserve. And we'll see if we can get to see him. Copy that, no problem. So I'm hearing that there's quite a lot of chatter on Twitter concerning what the lions were up to with the buffalo last night. And please excuse me for not filling you in a little bit earlier. But the buffalo were heading in an easterly direction last night out of Djuma's property into a neighboring property. They were picked up this morning without the lions in tow, and at the moment they haven't been able to relocate the lions. So that says one of a couple of things to me. Either the lions have caught a buffalo and are busy eating it and the guides just haven't found it just yet, or what's happened is the lions have lost interest, or the buffalo moved out of their territory and they were unable to follow. The buffalo had moved out of their territory into a different lion's territory. So at the moment the buffalo seem pretty unfazed. They are in a different property, in a neighboring property, one that we don't have access to. And the lions, we've got a couple of guys that are following up on their tracks. Seem to have also left our traversing area. But not to worry, these things change daily, they've got an hour, and until we know conclusively where those cats are, rule out the possibility of just around the next bend. So you'll notice an arrow straight road that we're busy driving at the moment. It's a road that's used as a fire break in the Sabi Sand. As you can imagine, in a wilderness area the size that we have, fires, runaway fires at least, pose an incredibly big risk to people's lives and property. And arrow straight roads like this are the easiest way of maintaining effective control of these fires. Last night, the sunset was colored in the east purple by. Come and have a look out for runaway fires. Quite often I've worked right through the night fighting fires. They start this time of the year, and it's a danger all the way until the first rains. The first really big rains happen in September, October. It's something that we all quite alert for out here is fire. It also is a handy highway for us to make our way into where our colleagues have spotted this leopard. As some of you have no doubtedly picked up, it's my maiden game drive for Wild Earth today. And although I've been doing or have done tens of thousands of game drives in my time, it always is exciting to be on a new property and working with a new team. I must be honest, one of the best experiences that I've had in a long time. Degrees, it'll probably go up to around about 30 degrees centigrade by the time 1-2 o'clock this afternoon comes about, and we can guess in the next month or so that it's going to go down to below 5 degrees by June, middle of June, when cold fronts start rolling in from the Cape. We go down to freezing, and then bald guys like myself definitely keep their solar panels under wraps for most of the morning. Now the road that we're on at the moment is the road that they've lost that leopard on. He was last seen hunting a bushbuck in a clearing. So what our friends have done, have left a branch in the road for us to mark the spot where they last saw the animal. We're going to be making our way into this area and seeing if we can use our Scott and I's combined skill to draw this cat out of the grass. Luckily for us, the area we're driving through at the moment seems pretty open, but from what I understand, the area where they lost him was very thick. So keeping our eyes peeled, we're going to be using all of our senses. Leopard definitely disturb the bush as they move through it, and if we're lucky, his presence is going to be given away by a francolin or a prey species of some sort. I got you busy. Making way for the vehicle that you saw in our view a few seconds ago. The road was a little bit too thick, the bush was a bit too thick. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
How are you? Fine, and you?
Sorry for bumping into your side. Dead piece here.
That's okay.
Alright, I'm gonna go around. I'll let you guys know if I see if I relocate him on that side.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for the help. As you can see, we definitely maintain good relationships with our teammates out here. We're all part of, as you said, the larger guiding community, and we've all got people that would love to see what we can show them. Very important part of our work out here. Teamwork. As you can see, the bush here is very thick, typical of leopard. Show your message, Krista. Copy that, thank you. I think what we're going to do is we're going to switch off here for a little bit, and we're just going to use our senses to listen to the bush around us. To drive around bashing through the bush is going to make a bit of noise. While we're doing that, I see Scott just picked up on a really big female golden orb web spider who's doing some running maintenance and repair to her web. Fantastic. You can see a male next to the leaf. On the right hand side of the leaf above her, there's a male. He's roughly, or can be, up to 1,000 times smaller than what she is. And there's a very, very good reason for that. If he was any bigger and he made a mistake in her web, she'd think he was food and she'd eat him up. So he avoids being food by being so small as to be below her notice, and in that way can sneak up on her and mate with her without her eating him. You can see she's very elaborately sticking her silk in a pinwheel fashion around herself. It's called an orb web, and this particular spider web goes golden in the sunlight, and that's where they get their name from, the golden orb web spider. One of the largest web spinning spiders we have out here. To give you some idea of how big she is, with her legs spread out, she would be as big as my hand. some maintenance on her web. Now Scott and myself, while we're busy speaking to you, are definitely listening to the bush around us. As I mentioned, leopard and with him being on the move, to just drive through the bush aimlessly wouldn't really achieve much. We won't stay here for too long. The day, there's a squirrel giving an alarm call. So I've got a squirrel giving an alarm call in front of us. So I'm going to go and find that squirrel. Once we find the squirrel, we need to do it relatively quickly because once leopard know they've
Just behind us.
Okay.
But
Scott,
they are moving.
Scott's
moving
just seen some elephant behind us as well. It's amazing. You know, we were standing there with our engines off and we didn't even hear it. But I'm more interested at the moment just in listening for the squirrel.
I've also seen, I think it's a bushbuck. Yeah, I can see a big male bushbuck. Just behind us. Let me try to get onto it.
So Scott can see a big male bushbuck.
And the elephant's in the background, but it is very thick.
Elephant in the background and a bushbuck with a squirrel that's calling in this area. Now, the elephant, the leopard obviously won't hunt, but the bushbuck most definitely is in the prey range of a young male leopard. And with a squirrel that's made. But everything is leading me to believe that this leopard is actually still in the area, which is a good thing. Now, the grass is relatively high. Probably about waist height, in actual fact, if I were to give it some perspective for you. And with the color the grass is at the moment, leopard would be. There we go, running, bushbuck. Okay, we've got alarm calls of bushbuck around us. That noise that you're hearing there.
Oh, here comes a leopard, it's right behind it.
We've just got the leopard, he's just been running after behind the car. Leopard was definitely hunting the bushbuck. Unfortunately, he missed. So we're just going to give him just 2 seconds to calm down. After having just used that amount of energy and the bushbuck making the alarm call, this leopard definitely feels out of place at the moment. Not uncommon. I don't just want to barrel down onto him, but he looks calm. And you know what, guys, that's what it takes to find cats out here. Now leopard are only actually successful 20% of the time, so it's actually not uncommon that he missed that bushbuck. Here we have the cat we came here to find.